Alright guys, so for photo number 2, we are going to get a lot more selective. We did our first photo, Panther Creek, just edited this. So now I'm going to, same thing, import. I've already got this imported, but just for purposes of showing you guys workflow, I don't know why that's open. I'm going to import it again. So, my workshops, and this is a photo I took in Mexico of my buddy Mike. Alright, so put it in the develop tab. So I think this is a really cool composition, and I do really like a lot of things about this photo, but the reason I don't think it's my favorite is actually more so because of Mike, Kayla, and Angelica. They were having a tough time taking a good photo. Angelica was snorkeling. I don't know what Kayla was doing, and Mike, I don't know what he's ever doing. So I really like parts of this photo. But the purpose of what I'm going to show you is ways you can touch up your photos that you may not already know. You may already know, but just kind of show you a few things that I didn't get into in the last photo. So mainly we're going to be using this tab up here after our basic edit. And this is your crop tool, like a spot healing brush, red eye, and you have your graduated filter. And same idea, you have your radial filter and your brush. One cool thing in the crop tool is, yeah, you can fix your crop based on the angle of the horizon, or you can grab this ruler tool, click it, and then you can just kind of drag, let's call that the horizon, and it will do it automatically for you. For this, I actually kind of like the angle it gives because you kind of have this whole warp around. But that is a really, really good tool when you have a clear horizon to just kind of, go across and see where it gets you. For the spot healing brush, we are going to be using this on this tutorial. The red eye, most cameras nowadays don't give you this, so I don't think I've ever actually used this. And I've covered a lot of like red carpet events, charity events, conferences. I've never had to use this. And I do use the 3 of these a lot. These all serve the same purpose, just different ways of how they do it. But first things first, I'm going to do a quick basic edit, drop the highlights, just so you can get some more detail in the sky, up the shadows, just a touch, whites, blacks. That's kind of the general idea for most photos. Before I forget, let's get chromatic aberrations and profile corrections. Profile corrections, when it got rid of the natural vignette, got a little too bright. Oops, down here and up here. So I'm going to drop the general exposure and counter that with the shadows. Okay, so pretty happy with that. But I really don't like all this highlight going down or going right here. So I'm going to grab a graduated filter, and what this does is if I drag this up, let me start that at 0. So anything under here will get the full effect of what we do. Anything between these two will get most of the effect, but it's going to start to feather out. And here is going to be pure feathering from effect to what you already have in your photo. So I'm going to just find a spot where I think this will mainly affect these rocks, kind of just the rocks. You can adjust the angle by hitting the middle one and the length right here. So there's just too much lightness coming on. It's distracting of the photo. So I'm going to drop the highlights of those and the exposure, the whites. But it seems like it's starting to affect the water, so I'm going to just bring that down a little bit. So yeah, I think that actually could even use it a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to do a second one for just this little area right here. And if I want to go back to the other one, I can click that. But yeah, that looks way better, and it's not really distracting at all. So before, after, do a little S curve to the tone curve. The colors of this photo, super interesting, because if you look at this photo, it's essentially one color, just different gradients and hues of it. So we have, it's all yellows, greens, and blues, which are all 3 overlapping colors. So Lots of yellows in here, greens in here. In here we have yellows, greens, blues, emerald, aqua, whatever you want to call it. These are some nice warm greens in the trees, and then this is a really light blue. So this whole thing is like a gradient of color. So this tool we went over on the last one is actually huge. So let's see the hue of the water. It's going to be affecting greens and aquas. Let's undo that. Let's see what the trees affect. Yellow and green. The sky, blue and slightly aqua. And the rocks are going to be yellows and greens. So everything in this photo affects the same few sliders. And as you saw, like if we were going to affect the sky and just the sky, it's actually going to be slightly affecting the rest of the photo. Not that much, but it is. So photos like this you have to be very careful with. One thing I do know is that these greens are way too warm for my liking. They were naturally warm, but they're just a little too much. So I'm just going to bring the greens a little bit over, and the yellows, to kind of give a little bit more depth to the photo, I'm going to actually make those more red. Just kind of, you can see it kind of brings in this color that wasn't necessarily there. And the reason I want to do that is just kind of for more depth in the photo. And this water, I mean, this watercolor was perfect. But if I want to make it even more dreamy, I just bring the aquas over a little bit. The blues will affect the sky more so than the water, but the sky's kind of fine how it is. Saturation, I really just want this water to be shining. I'm going to bring that up a lot, but I want it to be more blue than green, so I'm going to bring that back over. And I want it to be a little bit bright in the water, but aquas. And then the sky is so kind of faded that I'm going to drop that a little bit to bring it more. Yeah, there we go. That's more how the sky actually looks. So before, after, I really like kind of what's going on. This water just looks incredible. But we can go even further. So sometimes I'll see in photo editing, like, let's say someone went to this spot who didn't know how to edit a photo. If they were to, on Instagram, on their iPhone, any of these new apps nowadays, they would probably, most people just touch saturation, make their photos look like this, and it's horrible. And let's say if you just bring this vibrance up. I've definitely saturated photos this much, but this looks absolutely horrible. And the reason is because it's just fake. It's obvious that you threw saturation on to this photo. Where right now, if you look at this before and this after, yes, this photo is clearly edited, but it looks very real. I mean, the sky is exactly how the sky looks in the middle of the day. Same with the trees, and we're just at a really cool spot with awesome water. So if I want to saturate this, I'd hate this. I would not do that. But I kind of want some more saturation to this water. So what I'm going to do is, if these three weren't in this photo, I could take a radial filter, and I could, hold on, let me make sure this is set to 0. I could take a radial filter, get it to the size I want, get it to the angle I want, and I could put it just over the water. And I could just affect what's in here. And then you can see this haloing going on. What that is feathering. So the same thing as the graduated filter. Same idea. But it will affect them, and I don't want that. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to show you guys the brush tool. Bring this brush a little bit bigger. And the way I'm doing that is the bracket keys. Smaller, bigger. You can go small, you can go bigger. And over here, my feather's at 100. I'm going to bring that back to 50. And I'm just going to pretty much do a rough selection. I'm going to drag over all the water, try to avoid getting any of the guys in it, bracket, get into this tough area with a smaller brush. And now this entire selection is saved on this guy. So I can bring the highlights of the water up, and that was very slight, but it does give the water a really nice effect. because the water itself has a natural gradient of very light and it gradients to dark around the edges of the water. Bring the saturation of this water. It's too much, just a little bit, but I'm going to change the white balance of the color, and that'll get it really, really nice. So be minimal in your edits. Right? You can see if you go overboard, it can change it really, really quick. Like that looks crazy. That actually looks really cool. But if I was to do that, I would have to be a lot more selective with my editing to make it look real. So bring that up, bring it a little bit more green. And that's huge. And we didn't touch these rocks, we didn't touch these trees, we didn't touch the people, and we didn't touch the sky. So opposed to saturating the whole photo, where the photo clearly just looks fake and edited, if you get really selective, you can almost deceive people and the viewer to this photo of this crazy dreamy place you went to and make it even crazier, but still hold it real and still hold the natural elements to it. So I'm going to see a before and after, and I think it's huge. And I really, really like the colors of this. Now, to fix a few things with the photo, now that I'm really happy with the edit, there is a rope going through this water, and I really don't like that. And there are a few people in here. So we're going to be taking that out. The people are definitely going to be harder, so we'll start with this rope, because that will be easy for the most part. So I'm going to edit this in pieces, go through this water. And what Lightroom is going to be doing is finding similar parts, and it's going to be taking the pixels from another part of the photo and overlapping them to what you're trying to cover up. And an even better thing about what we're doing is this water is a very high textured area, and that makes our job really easy of kind of taking this rope out. It's really easy to cover up areas of high texture because it's just not that hard to get away with. And it makes it really easy, like blending purposes. Like if you look really hard, you can be like, oh, maybe there's something there. But if you zoom out, you can't see anything. So just gonna get the rest of this. Looks good. Get that. Zoom out. So now we got before and after. Huge difference. Takes out kind of the unnatural parts to it. Now these people are going to be maybe a little bit more difficult, but and sometimes you need to fix Lightroom's natural selection that it does. This guy out of here. And now there's still a little highlight right there that I don't like, so I'm just going to hit that with a little brush and just slightly adjust that. Now, before, after, people are gone and rope is gone, colors look incredible. So I'm really happy with this. And you can see all this texture in the water. Like unless you're looking for it, or unless you knew it was there and you're searching for that rope, you would never know that there was a rope or people in this photo, just because there's so much going on in this water. So now I'm going to export this again. We'll call this Casa Cenote tutorial. Choose the export folder you want to put it in. And this photo is done. And on the next photo, we're going to be taking some of these selective editing techniques and using them to really bring out a lot in a photo. and that will be our third and final photo for this series.